Now, here's the Dixon answer. Let's freaking go and get it done. Every one of those reports I see, I believe them fully that our budget is over bloated. We have too many people out there working, not doing enough. I love what Elon and Vivek said about the national government. Hey, you don't work there anymore? Get your ass in the office. Let's see what you actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
that's
unbelievable.
And Dixon, that's what the conservative citizens in Louisiana want to hear and want to see.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Just a quick note on today's audio quality. The first 18 minutes, we had a poor connection with Rep McMakin. So if you are struggling to listen to it, just fast forward to the 19 minute mark. It improves dramatically at that point. And if you want to catch the beginning through the transcript, you can do that. It's in the show notes. Thank you. Joining us today is Louisiana State Rep. Dixon McMakin from District 68. Last time he joined us, he was a candidate, and today he's in the hot seat to talk with us about the recent special session on tax and budget. Before we get into that hot topic, before we get too riled up, let me read the scripture of the day. It's 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 to 13. And it says, Those who are loved by God, let his love continually pour from you to one another, because God is love. Everyone who loves is fathered by God and experiences an intimate knowledge of him. The one who doesn't love has yet to know God, for God is love. The light of God's love shined within us when he sent his matchless Son into the world so that we might live through him. This is love. He loved us long before we loved him. It was his love, not ours. He proved it by sending his Son to be the pleasing, sacrificial offering to take away our sins. Delightfully loved ones, if he loved us with such tremendous love, then our loving one another should be our way of life. No one has ever gazed upon the fullness of God's splendor, but if we love one another, God makes his permanent home in us, and we make our permanent home in him, and his love is brought to its full expression in us. And he has given us his Spirit within us so that we can have the assurance that he lives in us and that we live in him. And if Holy Spirit lives in us as a result of our faith in Jesus, then love should be the evidence of that in our lives. And I feel like this time that we're in right now, leading into Christmas, is supposed to be a time of personal reflection, prayer, and recalibration. Many of us have been so consumed with life, with the special session, with elections, that it is time to get quiet and spend some time with the Lord. For me, I've had to make some adjustments so that I can make sure I'm on the right track. And there's no greater indicator for whether I'm on the right track than how I respond to and engage the people around me, my family, people I work with. And some good questions to ask in light of this passage are, am I operating from a place of love? Are my responses and reactions to my family ones that make them feel loved? And I hope this passage serves as an encouragement to carve out some time to spend with the Lord and make some of those adjustments so we can be operating from love in these weeks leading into Christmas.
Wow. What a great scripture passage today, Danielle. You know, the evidence of God being present in us is the way that we love each other. Our guest today, Dixon McMakin, really has put that into practice with an organization called Fraternus. I know this is not really the topic of the day, but I have to acknowledge Dixon McMakin and the influence that he and other men who started that organization had on my son and on so many other young men throughout the community, teaching them how to live lives of virtue, hope, and love. And Dixon takes time out of his busy schedule to help form and influence young men coming along. Dixon, it's really a pleasure to have you with us today, and thank you for all the good work that you do, non-political, in the community, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for that. We started Fraternus a few years ago at St. Aloysius. We started from a group from Alabama, and we wanted something that kind of combined, all those different groups that you have on most church campuses, right? You have Knights of Columbus, men's club, you got a youth group. This was the first time kind of putting them all together, and really the goal was for young men, medium men, old men to interact and get to the basics of principles of the Bible with virtues and to be virtuous men. And, our goal is we want to hear from the moms that those young men are better sons. We want to hear from the wives that their husbands are better husbands. And we want to hear from kids that my dad's a better dad too. And just getting simple. And that's something that I think too, I also take to the government's things too. Because sometimes simpler can be better. We don't need to be so complicated where we are and be godly focused people that we try to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a great point. Sometimes we tend to make things more complex than they need to be. And Christ's message, really, it's not an easy message, but it's a very simple message to understand, not always easy to live out. But Dixon, let's get to the legislative session, most recent past. What good, in your view, came out of the session as we move forward? I know you were knee deep in it.
Yeah, I think so. This was our fifth session of the year. We have organizational one, regular, and 3 specials. So we haven't done 5 sessions since 1994.
I feel like, you went in as a freshman and you came out as a senior.
A good student.
One of our, I don't really shave. I don't have much facial hair. They're like, man, if you would have, you could have a full beard through all this time you spent up there. But I think there was a group of us, our freshman class in particular, that came in and we wanted to get to work. We always voted to come. We wanted to be there. We wanted to get to work. And so the first thing I think that you saw with our class and the group we have in there now, and the Governor Jeff Landry, is a group that wants to get to work. You don't call special sessions if you don't want to pull a tough issue and get to work. So I think the first thing, Chris, to your question is this: the governor called a special session, and we wanted to be there and get to work. That in itself shows the steps that our group is taking to attract businesses here, get people here. Because if we didn't do that, we would have said, we can just wait till 2020 have a fiscal session. Collectively, it was, why wait? Why wait? We've been waiting too long to turn the ship of our state around. So let's get to work. Let's get in there. And I think we accomplished a good bit. Did we get everything we set out to do in the governor's call? No, we didn't quite get all of it. We got well over a majority of it, which I think we're already starting to see the benefits of that. Talk to some economic leaders around the state.
Great. What are you hearing from economic leaders across the state? When we had on Senator Thomas Presley before the session, he was looking forward to the session just as you were, and he was talking about, if most of this got accomplished or if the whole package got accomplished, we would be moving from, I think, 40th in ranking in terms of economic friendliness or attractiveness to number 8. And you said we didn't get all the way there, but what are people's responses? Does it seem like businesses are more interested in taking a look at Louisiana or would consider it?
Yes, he was talking about the foundation rankings right there, and I don't think we're going to get the top 10. I'm not seeing the new rankings. I don't know if they've put them out yet or not. But there's been some estimates of what we might be, but even with that estimate, it's still going to put us be thinking, right, going from 48, 49th into the 20s. So that alone is a sign to the business community that says, hey, look, Louisiana just made probably one of the largest jumps in any state in the country. Let's go look at them. Let's go see what they're doing on there. And they're going to see a business-friendly governor. They're going to see a governor that has economic development in his blood, used to work in that department. They're going to see Susan Bourgeois, our new economic director, development over, LED, what she's trying to accomplish, bringing Louisiana to work. Me and her actually have a little saying we tell each other. I was in Nashville for my cousin's wedding, and I sent her a picture. It was these planes in the background. I said, right now, the state guard of Louisiana is the Brown Pelican. By the time we're done, I want people to hard consider that we're going to make it train.
I love that.
Louisiana, because we're going to get to work. So some of the big steps we took then, we got rid of the franchise tax. It was a tax pretty much everybody agreed. We were one of the few states, if any, it. Why are we still doing it? Why are we still putting a special burden on businesses that other states aren't doing it? And we also reduced the corporate tax rate as well. So those two signs right there are showing businesses, and businesses, corporations bring jobs. Let people come, want them to be here, get to work. They bring tax revenue, everything you want for a healthy society, they do. And so those were two huge steps we took from the business standpoint that I think we're going to start to see. I believe the governor will actually be in the North Louisiana tomorrow for a ribbon cutting, a big economic development ribbon cutting. We've heard from natural gas companies that they're coming to North Louisiana. We have the Haynesville Shell up there, which is a resource that we're tapping into now to provide that. So you're going to start to see some of those announcements. Of course, everything building up to the Super Bowl coming in a few months in New Orleans, and what we're trying to do in New Orleans with a previous special session to reduce crime. I saw yesterday, I asked Mayor Cantrell about that. And, hey, is this governor's taking credit? You're taking credit. Whose credit is it? And for as much as she might want to take credit, it was the special session, what Jeff Landry and what Attorney General Liz Mueller, our state police and Troop Noel are doing. No tide turned in New Orleans until we took those steps, put those troops down there. And I think you're going to see businesses feel more comfortable being here. They're going to feel safer. Their families are going to feel safer. And they're going to want to come back to Louisiana. We're the only state in the South that's losing population. There's a health renaissance that's going on in the country. People are leaving those terrible states, Illinois, California, New York. They're just not putting up with governments anymore that are taking too much of their hard-earned money. What we're saying is, hey, in Louisiana, you're going to come here. We're going to treat you fairly. Oh, and by the way, we have a little bit of a lanyard thing that those other states don't have. Every week, you can find great music, great food, a great festival. And you can have a really good time as well. I think when people understand that and they feel that Louisiana, they're going to come here, they're going to stay, and then we're going to start to see that Southern Renaissance turn into the Louisiana Renaissance.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. There were some clear trade-offs from this session that happened. And, many of us expected to see the state income tax completely eliminated. A recent guest of ours, Barry Huggins, came on and talked about Louisiana. If we didn't get rid of the state income tax, becoming an island of taxation in a sea of freedom based on our neighbors. And, I know that when we were talking to candidates back last summer through the fall election season, many of the candidates pledged to get rid of the state income tax. Why didn't we get there? And is there a plan to get there? Because it doesn't seem like there's a phased approach that was kind of put into the legislation that made it all the way through.
I'll say this, and I think he's okay with me saying it. The governor is behind a fully getting rid of the income tax. Yeah. Our group of freshmen came in. I think we're all behind it. The problem just was the fiscal note on it. But it immediately was going to be too much of a big burden that people didn't want. The people, I would say that professionals and the people that are advising us from the fiscal office and the treasurer's office, the Department of Revenue office, that they just thought that was cutting off an appendage. Really, it was the thought process there. But everyone is committed to doing it. What we're trying to do when we moved from the personal income down to 3, so it's the lowest in the country of those that have it, right? You got to always say the extra part behind it. It is one of the lowest of people that have it. You can't just say you're the lowest because the other states don't have it. I think I mentioned this when I was on your show last time, right? I have cousins that live in Texas, see all over these states without income tax, and I get to see the simplistic life they have. So another aspect of that, too, is that we still do not have a state centralized tax collection system. That's something else that we've got to work on in the future for the things that we wanted to do to affect the locals. You have a big pushback when it comes from the locals versus the state. Who collect? What do they get it? What do they spend it on? And so we started those conversations in this special session. And now I think we all know what the topics are, where people are curious, where they're cautious of cutting along the way. And so now that we know that, we can put the plan in place over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. I would have voted for it. They put it on there and they would have said, hey, it's $2-3 billion. I said, well, give me the red. Let's go do it. Well,
hang on.
They don't give me that pin. But hopefully, as we get a little older, and we get the experience, we'll have that opportunity to do that. And I think we're going to get that. I think everyone sees, as you said, we cannot be an island nation to get there. It's just which way do you want to get there, right? Texas and their property. Everyone knows Texas has crazy property taxes they put on it. Other states
Yeah.
and sales.
But they're also, but Dixon, but you're
Where
right.
do we
But
want to be?
yeah, but Texas is also a thriving state economically. Florida is also a thriving state economically. Mississippi, excuse me, is very steadily phasing out their state income tax. But I wanted to ask you a question about this. You mentioned that it would have been too burdensome to cut the state income tax out entirely, to eliminate it. Barry Huggins suggested, and others have suggested, that there could have been, and maybe should have been, an amendment in legislation for precisely that, a gradual phase out of the state income tax, say within 4 or 5 or 6 years. Why do you think it was that was not included in legislation, where there would have been an inevitable ultimate elimination of the state income tax on a phased out basis? In other words, you didn't have to do it all at once.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do and what they want to do is, let's see what happens with everything we did put in place. Let's see where it takes us, because let's say we did a phase out and everything works the way that it might work. Let's say like best case scenario happens, and let's say we can cut it sooner. Why limit ourselves to a phase out? Because if we put the phase out in, something I've seen from other legislative years is you put the phase out in, and then people say, oh no, we're already going to get rid of it in 5 years. Why rush it? Why get rid of it sooner? This allows us that opportunity to maybe come back and do it sooner. One of the most important bills that we passed, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, but it was by Representative, I called it the Government Growth Limit Bill, GGLB. And this was something a lot of people forget. Red Diamonds, this is his second time around in the House. He was there back in the day with Bobby Jindal, Fugazi budgets that he was putting together, taking things from certain areas and doing it. But had we at the time put in the Diamond Growth Limit Bill, we wouldn't have seen the growth that we've seen under the John Bell years as well. So I know a lot of people, myself included, direct, frank conversation with the fourth floor of, why are we not cutting right now? Where is my big cut? That's what I call it. Where's my big cut? And, they did tell me, Dixon, the way this works, this is a fixing session. When we come back in 2025, when we do our budget, that's when we're going to, again, I know, Chris, I sent you some on that we did cut the budget from the previous administration, and that's something they're committed to keep doing. So if we continue to cut, and we also have the Diamond Growth Limit Bill in there as well, you're going to limit the growth of government going forward. That's then where I see our tax initiatives and what we'd like to do, bring the businesses here, get the jobs here. Hopefully we'll see that income tax eliminated sooner than later.
Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge Parish Chapter is dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend and take back their parental rights at all levels of government. To learn more or to get involved with Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge, email momsforlibertybatonrouge@gmail.com. That's moms, the number 4, libertybatonrouge@gmail.com. The email address is on the Patriot page of our website, freedomstate.us, and it's in the show notes.
So clearly, Dixon, it would be better to phase the income tax out sooner. And if you put a time certain in there, 4 or 5 years, maybe it could be done sooner. Is the legislative will in place? I mean, is the desire to do what's necessary to eventually completely eliminate the state income tax? I know a lot of people talk about it. I know it's your desire to do that. But right now, there's nothing in place, but you're saying that there is the legislative will to get that done, eliminate the state income tax.
Yeah, I would say absolutely the desire is there. And one thing we did this past session, we dropped it to that normal rate, or excuse me, a standard rate of 3% from 4.25 at the max to 3. So we saw a 1.25 cut. Now I'll tell you, internal discussions though were brought up to raise it. They were brought up to raise it. Where if we didn't meet our number, to try to make this a revenue neutral or even a cut issue that we were doing, would we go up? Would we go up to 2.5? Would we go up to 3.5? I think collectively we all kind of said, no, this was one that's got to go away anyway. We're not touching that one. So we stayed true to that. That one stayed 3 the whole way through. You did see a slight change in the corporate tax side that we gave a few basis points back on that side. And so that's where we made some adjustments. We made some other adjustments on some internal movement of money that we have at the Capitol as well, all in an effort, Chris, to keep it at 3, knowing that, all right, we just got rid of 1.25. So really 2.5 more times, we get there. We get there. 2.5 more of those cuts, we'll get there, get the 3 to 0. So I think that shows you the commitment we had to that portion of it and the desire. And I would say if I'm ranking it, I think the desire is most of our freshman class. We came in with pretty strong. I think we saw what was happening around the country with other states versus the others that have been there a little bit longer, right? It takes maybe a few more tugboats to move an older ship than it is for a newer ship to move around the harbor. So I think the desire would be stronger for our class. And so that's why I think we're going to get there in my time.
Do you think, Dixon, that it's going to require raising the sales tax more? Some people have been talking about one of the chief criticisms of the session is that we really didn't reduce government spending here. We didn't make spending cuts. We really, it really swapped taxes around. So we reduced the corporate income tax, reduced the individual income tax to 3%, but not only did we not completely eliminate the 0.045 sales tax increase, we actually raised it. And now the combined sales tax in many places in Louisiana is approaching 11%. Assuming we ultimately eliminate the state income tax, are we going to have to raise the sales tax again to be able to balance that out? And what about the people who are going to be suffering with a 10.5%, 11% sales tax rate in Louisiana, the highest in the country?
Yeah, so I think, a couple points there. You got one thing about the rates now is people that their income is going to get reduced. We doubled the standard deduction for them as well. The seniors got more of a deduction as well. So even if you would have stayed at the 3.5 level, even if that would have stayed and you currently are at the 3.5 level, you would have more money in your pocket because of the other steps we did. So previously, when they did that 0.45, there was no other cut on the other side of the ledger. Right. But this time with the personal income cut, the over $1 billion cut, largest cut in the history of Louisiana, there was something on the other side. Previously, there was no other side to the equation. And I think that was one reason that people like myself, really were questioning why we were adjusting our sales tax side when we were trying to do multiple cuts. Well, it's all about, and I'm a financial advisor, so it comes down to the business side of basis points and where you move your basis points, right? If you have a massive basis point cut on one side of the ledger and you don't make up a basis point on the other side, then what are you to do in making that up? But we did put in the sales tax is getting reduced. It does go down, I believe 0.45 in 4 years, I believe it was. So we said this was more of a transitional basis point that we were putting in there during this time of when we're having the collections come in. And one thing I like about our group, Secretary Nelson, the Governor Landry, is we want to track all this. And so that's something else. We put a bill in place too to make the locals track stuff as well. Like imagine this, there were some numbers we were asking for and they were telling us, oh, we don't quite know what that number is, right? It's 2024. Yeah. And you mean to tell me in certain tax collections and parishes, you can't tell me what the number is that we're looking for? So we specifically put that in a few of the laws this time to say, hey, no, we don't care if you can't find it now. Going forward, you're going to find it. So we know what that number is. So we can go back and make those cuts and make those adjustments. That was another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, I think, is not only the Guyman Growth Limit Bill, but also the restrictions we put in that says, hey, you are now required to report this in certain ways. So we know in the future when we ask you for that number. So just to give your listeners some background, we have a legislative fiscal office and they put out a fiscal note on a bill. So when we drop from 4.25 to 3, they tell us on this paper what they think that number will be. They get that number from the Department of Revenue, who gets the tax numbers. The Department of Revenue gets their numbers from the locals that collect the tax. So it's this upstream of information, and anywhere along that stream, if you don't have the right data or what you're trying to find, well, then it throws off the numbers. And so that's something that we really tried to look at as well. Hey, going forward, how can we make sure that Louisiana is in the right place to have the right numbers to make those determinations in the future of how quickly we can get rid of the personal income tax?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I had no idea reporting was so terrible. And, you were a business owner. I'm a business owner. I pay for QuickBooks. It's expected of me to be able to know what comes in, what goes out, how much I owe in my tax bill. So the least we can expect from our local governments is that they are tracking the money that they are taking in. I mean, that's just too insane. And we're not even this doesn't even address the money that's going out, right? This was just clearly for on the tax side. You have to know what's coming in.
And that's to Chris's point too. Like this session was about the money coming in session, I would say. When we come back in 2025, that's the money going out part that we are still committed. I know I am as well, to cutting. I want to see another red line come in and a dip from those previous budgets that we did in round one. And I know there's several of us that the governor has even told us personally, hey, if anyone gives you any trouble when you ask them for a number or why are you spending this, what are you doing, you let my office know. He is committed. His office is committed. They want to know the people that are the elite fat cat bureaucrats that say, no, not my budget. No, sorry, I don't know that number. He is committed. He wants to know who those people are, what departments that is. And a lot of times I think, as you guys have been around this a little longer than me, those are the ones usually you can find the most fat to cut from as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Dixon, I'll be happy to tell you that Chris is going to go to Costco and he's going to get a big box of red Sharpies and he's going to hand them out the first day of session.
Love it.
Absolutely.
I'll put my logo on them, Chris. Heck,
Yeah, you go.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because we got, it's got to be, certainly has to be.
People that know me, I keep a Sharpie in my jacket every day, so I always got it ready to go. I'll add a red one to the repertoire.
Yeah, you need a red one. Look, when we interviewed you as candidate McMakin, you were having monthly breakfasts called Bacon with McMakin. So I wanted to check in on those. Are you still having them? And what are you hearing from your constituents? What's on their mind right now? How are they feeling about the outcome of this session?
Yeah, so we moved those. Instead of doing them at a restaurant, we were doing them just at the Capitol because I was there so much, like I said, through the 5 sessions. So we would have them in the cafeteria at the Capitol over there. We will be having our December one coming up, our end of year review one coming up as well. And we're hearing the same thing. It's the table side talk from people. But what I find a lot of times is people aren't very engaged. They don't pay attention as much as you guys do. And I know your listeners as well that are very engaged voters. So they might have an issue with a topic or something. And really it's trying to explain the practical side of things of what happened. For example, right now you're hearing like we just did a tax session and we didn't cut the budget. So I have to explain to people, we actually cut the budget when we do the budget. We didn't do a budget during this tax session. That's when we will cut that. And the cuts we did are coming. But also, we also did cut the personal income tax by over $1 billion. That's a really big deal. I loved one time that Speaker DeVilliers was in our legislative meeting, and he said, guys, I've been here 9 years. I wrote down some goals every year when I've been here. I never thought we would even be at this point this soon. And wow, that just kind of hit you pretty hard that even the speaker didn't think we'd get to where we got to this soon in his tenure. And so I think that our freshman class that came in and, we get that feeling of year one. So, I think about in sports, right? When you have a good tennis match or you play golf really well or baseball, whatever that might be, and you have a great game, what do you want to do? You want to get back in there. Like, you don't want to ever come out of the game. You're striking people out pitching, you're getting base hits. Coach, put me back up, put me back on that mound. And that's how we kind of feel. It's like, hey, put me back in there. I don't want to wait the 4 months. You want to call another special in February again? All right, we're in. Let's roll. Let's go. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's keep making bold, positive change for Louisiana.
Dixon, the this fiscal responsibility task force. During the middle of the session, I know that there was a lot of pressure on the governor when they were talking about raising the sales tax and talking about taxing services and such. And there wasn't much talk about actually cutting spending during the session. So the governor created, at least talking about creating a fiscal responsibility task force, the appointment of a czar, the ostensible purpose for which is to reduce spending, streamline government. Two-part question here. Do you know whether or not a czar has been appointed by the governor yet? And is this possibility something that needs to be approved by the legislature for it to go forward?
Yes, I was in actually one of those meetings where we talked about that. We talked about the red pens. It was a group of us that brought that up. Where was the spending cuts? What were we doing? And that was his commitment to us, was saying, hey, you want to get a group together? You want to do this? I'm in. Let me know what y'all want to do. But y'all are the legislature. Go do it. He was kind of empowering us and saying, don't ask for permission. Go do it. Go be bold. Go get it done. To my knowledge, no czar has been appointed. He can do that by his executive pen that he has to put that group together. I hope to be on it. You've seen it with President Trump now with his Doge group that he has with Vivek and Elon. And so I think, when you have the federal government that's going to start doing it, you want the state government to do it as well. We've been working on something even back to the early spring of the Amber Alert system with me and trying to go paperless in certain zones. If there's paper that we're using at the Capitol or different forms, you got to fill out. Just two of my pillars were efficiency and effectiveness. So we want to get those involved as well. And I think you're going to see a lot of that coming from him. But to my knowledge, no czar yet. I'll be honest, I hope we don't call him a czar. I hate that word.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the border czar, the other czars that Obama started. I'm not a big czar guy. So if he wants to set up a committee and have a committee chair, I'd love that. But I would personally ask him not to call him a czar. We don't need Russia up in our state.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
Good point.
Well, in light of Doge and the moves being made by our neighboring states, you've alluded to the fact that Louisiana was pretty aggressive this session. Thanks to I think the pushing of some strong legislators who feel like they have a lot to go back and report to their constituency on. We're looking at, I'm way down in South Louisiana in Terrebonne, and the insurance bills are out of control. And so that has, if we're going to keep people here, it has to be accounted for that, we're not just looking at a tax bill like every other state. We're also looking at an additional extraordinary insurance rates, both for cars and for homes. But, that's kind of my personal aside. And we've talked to Paul Hurd recently. I don't know if you've talked to him before. He's been looking at the budget very closely. He's been looking at Louisiana's economic incentive structure or disincentive structure, depending on your point of view. And he has said that he thinks that our state agencies could take an across-the-board 5% haircut, and we could live well within our means without having to have a state income tax at all. I know you've mentioned being very happy to go ahead and get rid of that as soon as we can find the cuts to do it. Do you think that that kind of aggressive move is something that we'll be seeing with your red pen and the red pens that we'll be handing out to everybody else in the legislature?
Yeah, I hope so. And Danielle, kind of two parts there you talked about. You talked about the insurance side of stuff, and then we also have the tax and the budget side of stuff. So, I don't think I've ever seen where us making any tax moves per se would help insurance. But if we have more businesses here, more companies wanting insurance, more insurers willing to write insurance, and increasing the competition then hopefully would reduce our insurance rates. So
yeah, but
one
not
of the
so much
measures,
even moving the insurance rates through tax cuts, but moving people's ability to live. It's their own
right.
budget being
Yeah, and that's
impacted.
exactly, hopefully one of the after things of this tax session, we will see that. I actually talked to Commissioner Temple this past weekend. He lives in my district, so we were one of those double voters. I vote for him, he votes for me. Hopefully, I think we both voted for each other. And it's something we always talk about. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, are we going to do an insurance special?" He's like, "We're talking about it," because if he's got to put together the right package. Of course, we kind of had one earlier in the year where we addressed a lot of issues. His package that he had come through the legislature, we had a couple of his bills didn't quite make it. I did talk to Senator Talbot, who's over insurance as well on the Senate side. It's one thing you got to learn as a freshman is, who are the people to talk to and learn from, and, just going straight to the commissioner and going to the chairs of those specific committees is something that helps a lot. And Senator Talbot, last time I talked to him, didn't sound like we were leaning towards a special, but that they would have a package of bills during the regular in April to get to. So that's something still for us to look at. I know if they do call it, I'll be there. I live the second closest to the Capitol. Larry Selders lives closer than me, so I'm ready to go, ready to get there. And I think our group of freshmen, and not only that, I think the group of Republicans that have served 8 years under a Democratic governor that really couldn't get the ball moving the way they wanted to, now with an opportunity of state government on our side to help us keep that ball moving forward for Louisiana, I think we'll continue to see that. Because you mentioned at those Bacon with McMakins, and when I talk to my other colleagues that are having lunch events or dinner events or whatever they're having as well, it's almost unanimous that insurance is one of the top things. Of course, we'll be having a press release to go out in a couple weeks that we're finally going to get the start to shutting down the Washington Street exit off the interstate bridge here in Baton Rouge. I know the interstate for my people is a big one, but overall, kind of unanimously, the insurance rates are at the top of everyone's mind. So we know when it's at the top of the mind, then you got to be aggressive and bold and take action as well.
Yeah. Dixon, right now, not to put you on the spot, obviously we have a bloated government. We have, Barry Huggins indicated to us that statistics show that in North Carolina, that what we spend in Louisiana take more money from taxpayers by about $10,000 more per citizen than North Carolina, and about $5,000 more per taxpaying citizen than Florida does. And yet those states seem to have better outcomes than us. What does that say about fiscal efficiency of our government in Louisiana and our ability to make meaningful cuts in spending?
All right, Chris, I've known you for a while now, so I'm going to give you two kind of answers. One answer is going to be a political answer, then one's going to be a Dixon answer. Okay, so here we go. The political answer to that is any stat obviously can be skewed to show something. North Carolina and Florida have vast more people than we have. So, of course, when you have more people, you have more money into the pot overall, then you don't have to have as large of a budget per the citizen if you have more people. That's just economic.
Well, that's true, because you have your pool is bigger.
Because your pool is much bigger. So there's your political answer, right? That even though he says that and does, I didn't see his reporting, that sometimes you have to take the reporting with a grain of salt and just know that we live in a much lower population state, a much lower medium income state, and all of that when you take those into consideration. Now, here's the Dixon answer. Let's freaking go and get it done. Every one of those reports I see, I believe them fully, that our budget is overbloated. We have too many people out there working, not doing enough. I love what Elon and Vivek said about the national government. Hey, you don't work there anymore? Get your ass in the office. Let's see what you actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And Dixon, that's what the conservative citizens in Louisiana want to hear and want to see.
Yeah. And so that's where then I would say for me, though, right, I have to learn it, though, too, right? I come from the private sector. I don't come from the public sector. And I would say we don't have a lot of legislators that really do either. Like a lot of us, part of the reason we got elected is to bring that business sense in there. And I'll say this, this past session, we passed a bill for Susan Bourgeois at LED just to allow her to purchase items and not have to wait through the normal purchasing guidelines of state government. How about that? Like, she's trying to do something to bring businesses here, but she was stopped by the red tape of the bureaucracy of government. So we had to pass a new law to allow her to not have to do that. And even in that bill, we were getting pushback that said, hey, whoa, if y'all allow this to happen, like, whoa, government might become too quick and too efficient for us to operate. Okay, well, then get it done. I just grew up, a dad was a baseball player. My granddad was a principal, a Marine. You rub dirt on it, you get back in the game. Excuses are not accepted for the McMakin house. And every person, how about this, guys? Great example. Sorry to tangent. You got me off, Chris. We put a Christmas tree up in the Capitol this past week, okay? It's a fake Christmas tree. And I asked the lady, I said, hey, why are we doing a fake tree? We have great trees in Louisiana. Why not bring a local tree, put in the Capitol? And the amount of bureaucracy I got from her of why we can't have a real tree. Oh, well, we'd have to water it too much. We'd have to worry about the lights. It may not be as firm for the ornaments. We don't know what it would look like. It wouldn't be consistent. I was like, be quiet. Put a real tree up. Make it beautiful. We can brag about where the tree came from. But that was just a little taste of what you experience in that building when you talk about something to make it better and greater for Louisiana, make it more efficient, more effective. And just that person that's always done it the same way doesn't want to change. So the change agents are in the building. And I think that's starting to get around that we're there. We're ready to work. Watch out.
Yeah. And Dixon, it's good to know that you and your colleagues are prepared to phase out the individual income tax and are prepared to make meaningful budget cuts and to streamline our government. Because I can just tell you that based upon conversations we have with LACAG members and State of Freedom listeners, they are looking to see where the legislative will is and the governor's will when it comes to those two primary issues, eliminating the state income tax and reducing the size and inefficiency of our government. And I don't see how you do that, Dixon, and keep everybody happy. We have to understand that some of these things may be uncomfortable. There may be some difficult decisions that have to be made. And unlike you, I see a lot of politicians who seem to want to do certain things that need to be done, but they don't want to make the tough decisions that have to be made. And I want to get your response to that. Your view is that the legislature is prepared, and I know that you can't speak for everyone, but your understanding is that the legislature is prepared to make some of these tough decisions that have got to be made.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think with our younger freshman class that came in too, using data, using analytics, kind of that, you mentioned that gentleman that talked about how much more we take in and how much more we spend and all that stuff. So having that data to look at and not just taking it off of the word of someone that's been in government for 25, 30, 35 years, right? Serving in government used to be an honor and a privilege. And I think now people are taking advantage of it. That's what I see personally so far right now, right? People talk about the legislator, how much we make. Yeah, we don't make a whole lot. It's a little bit here and there, whatever it is. But would I do this for free? Yeah, I would. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve the citizens around you. And a lot of people, though, I'm not saying the legislators, but some of the staff members there, right? You don't see that same honor and privilege that I think you used to see with people. And sometimes it's just how to get by, to get my paycheck and then retire one day with a big fat sum. And that's something we got to look at in all factors. And that's what we are looking at with that, the budget, how we spend it and what we do going forward. And it's nice to have the power of the fourth floor behind us now when we're trying to do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One example, Dixon, before we close you out, LDH says that, okay, we can cut spending, the Louisiana Department of Health, but the only way we're going to be able to do it is by cutting disability services. You're talking about an agency that spent $100 million or so on advertising. And so they come back and say, well, the only way we're going to be able to cut spending is by cutting services to the disabled. Is that true? There's nowhere else that LDH can cut spending?
And hold on, I also want to jump in there because that LDH $100 million ad spend has me so irate I can barely stand myself, because we know that they were spending that advertising Most of it went to pro-vaccine, pro-COVID shot advertising when we have known that the COVID shot is not really safe and effective as we've been told. So they're spending money on advertising. That's $100 million. Then the advertising is causing more money to be spent. I'm like, why would we want to advertise services in the state? That doesn't make any sense. Sorry. All right.
So we have freshman Rep Jay Galloway is over our Homeland Security Division. They did a great COVID review that they did. They're continuing to do that. I know Rep Chuck Owen was well involved with that one as well. So it's great to have them looking back and to see what we messed up along the way. Of course, Jay and I weren't there at the time, but I think we would have thought we would have acted differently and tried to hold the governor a little more accountable on that. But yeah, to hear they can only cut that section, I don't think we're allowed to curse on here, but it starts with a bull and it ends in SHIT.
Okay.
I don't believe that at all if they say that. Those budgets are all over the place. One of the things, Chris and Daniel look for in the future is maybe starting with a zero budget, right? And make you prove why you get the money, right? Instead of just saying, well, here's all the positions. Okay, here's a 2% raise or whatever it is over here and that way over there. Let's start with a zero-sum budget and say, what do you need? Do you really need all that? Let's go.
Great idea.
And then two, if people know that their jobs are needed, I believe I heard that about Elon Musk when he got to Twitter, that he made all employees come and meet him for 5 minutes and tell him what they do and why they were still needed around. Imagine if we ever did that with a state agency. That'd be a long ass meeting, I know, but I'd sit there and I'd like to hear the notes and let them tell us why they think they're still needed.
Yeah,
exactly. I heard that meeting for him lasted 18 hours and people just came in 5-minute increments. The man is a beast. The man is a beast and an inspiration. And I hope that we can see something that even approaches that kind of scrutiny when it comes to our state budget.
Well, Dixon, it's good to have you down there. It's good to know that your financial mind is on all this stuff. And, we expect, great results, not only out of you, but out of your colleagues as well. Let's keep moving forward and get the results that we're looking for. I do believe, and I think that Barry Huggins agrees with us. In fact, he suggested this, that there were some good things that came out of the session. But we're not to second base yet. And we've got to get around third and get home and really make Louisiana what it can be. And I think with your leadership down there and others, we're going to get there. So God bless you, sir. And thank you for joining us and sharing your insights with us today.
Looking forward to those LACAG red pens in the springtime, baby. Bring them all. We want big Sharpies and little ones. Bring them all to us.
You bet. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.